Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Beyond the Gate just served up a storyline so chilling, so perfectly constructed that I genuinely had to pause and collect myself before I could even talk about it properly. June's new relationship was supposed to be her moment of peace. Instead, it may just be the most dangerous thing that has ever walked through her door. On the surface, it looked like exactly what everyone needed, a little light in the middle of all the darkness that had already put June through the ringer. Her new boyfriend arrived in her life with charm, warmth, and just enough mystery to feel exciting rather than alarming. People who cared about June exhaled for the first time in a while, relieved that she had found something that seemed uncomplicated and genuine. But this is beyond the gates, and uncomplicated is not a word this show knows how to spell. What starts as a hopeful new chapter quietly, methodically unravels into something far more sinister. A wave of false identities, calculated deception, and a threat that June could not have seen coming because it was designed specifically so that she wouldn't. The discovery does not arrive with a dramatic confrontation or a public unmasking. It arrives with a name, just a name, encountered by accident. In the most ordinary of moments, and everything changes because sometimes the most terrifying revelations do not announce themselves. They just slip through a crack in the ordinary and flood in before you can stop them. Let us take this apart piece by piece because the details here are everything. When June's new boyfriend first appeared, the reaction from this around her was cautious optimism at best. She had been true enough. Anyone watching her life from the outside world would understand why she deserved a moment to breathe, to feel something good without immediately bracing for the fallout, and he seemed to offer exactly that. He was charming in all the right ways, attentive without being suffocating, mysterious without being evasive. At least that was how it felt in the beginning. Looking back now, you realize the mystery was not an accident. It was a feature, not a flaw. It was carefully maintained, because the small things were there from early on. And this is what gates me. The signs were always present. They were just packaged well enough to be dismissed. He would steer conversations away from his past with an ease that seemed natural, deflecting with a smile and a change of subject so smooth you barely noticed it had happened. The gaps in his story were real, but he handled them with such casual confidence that it almost felt rude to press further. And June, who is not naive, let me be very clear about that, noticed some of it. She's sharp, she pays attention, but she also wanted this. She wanted to believe in it. She wanted to trust that this time was different. And there is something deeply human and heartbreaking about that. Because we have all been there, haven't we? Choosing to lean into hope even when a quiet voice in the back of your mind is whispering that something is off. And for a while she did. The moment everything begins to unravel is not explosive or theatrical. It is quiet and almost accidental, which somehow makes it even more unsettling. June is going through documents, routine, ordinary, completely unrelated to her relationship, and there it is. A name. Just a name sitting in a pile of papers, that kind of thing you could scroll past without a second thought. Except she had heard this name before. Recently, her brain made the connection before her heart was ready to accept what it meant. That name, it was his, but it was not the name he had given her, and I cannot overstate how disorienting that moment must have felt. Imagine being so certain about someone, so settled in the reality of who they are in your life. And then, in the space of a single second, that certainty starts to dissolve. The ground does not shake, it just quietly stops feeling solid beneath your feet. She told herself it was a coincidence at first, because of course she did. Because that is the merciful explanation, the one that lets you keep believing what you want to believe. People share names, it happens all the time, but the more she turned it over in her mind, the more the rational explanation fell apart. The timeline was wrong, the details refused to line up, and that feeling in her gut, quite persistent, refusing to be silenced, pushed her forward even as part of her desperately wanted to stop. So she started digging quietly and carefully. without giving anything away, without letting him see even a flicker of what was happening behind her eyes. And what she uncovered did not come in a single, neat revelation, it came in fragments. A record here, a connection there, each piece offering just enough truth to pull her deeper. With every discovery, the picture sharpened, and the clearer it became, the more terrifying it was. Because the man she had been dating, the one who looked at her with warmth and made her feel safe, he was not who he said he was, not even close. His real identity was buried under layers of deliberate deception, constructed with the kind of care that takes time and intention. This was not someone hiding out of shame or embarrassment. This was someone hiding because they had something significant to protect. He was not just concealing his past, he was running from it. And his past, this is the part that makes everything worse, was not some distant, irrelevant chapter. It was connected to people and events that June knew, to things that carried real danger, to a world she understood was not safe. When that second realization landed on the top of the first, June must have felt the floor give away entirely. Because this was not a coincidence, he had not wandered into her life by accident or by fate. He had come there with a purpose. Every conversation they had shared, every carefully timed moment of closeness, every smile and every question, all of it started to feel different, calculated, like someone studying a subject rather than falling for a person. Why me? She whispered to herself, her hands trembling slightly as she held the evidence in front of her, and the answer that presented themselves offered to no comfort whatsoever. Either she was a target or she was a key, a means to an end that she did not yet fully understand. Both possibilities were frightening in their own distinct ways. A target means someone wants to hurt her. A key means someone needs her for something, which means they will do whatever it takes to get it. Neither option is survivable through ignorance. The next time she saw him, watching him smile that familiar smile, hearing him speak, in that same warm tone, it must have taken every ounce of discipline June possessed to hold herself together. She could see it now, the machinery beneath the warmth, the pauses that lasted a fraction too long, the way his eyes shifted when certain topics came close to the surface. He asked if she was okay, and she told him she was just tired. He studied her for a moment longer than felt natural, and in that pause, June must have wondered whether he already knew that she was on to him, whether she had given something away, whether the game between them had already shifted into a different phase. But then he let it go, at least for now, and that night she could not sleep. Every memory played back through a different lens, every moment they had shared filtered through the question of whether any of it had ever been real, or whether she had simply been a role in someone else's story the entire time. The biggest question of all, the one that kept pulling her back, what did he want? Because whatever it was worth constructing an entire false identity for. It was worth the risk, and that meant it was not something small. And the anonymous message arrived, brief, cold, and devastatingly precise, just a push in the direction she was already heading, or perhaps a warning, or perhaps something even more threatening than either of those. Whoever sent it was not just aware of him, they were aware of her, of the situation, of everything. She was not the only one watching. And suddenly, this was no longer a story about a relationship built on lies. It was something much larger, much more dangerous, and June was already inside it. What makes this storyline so deeply gripping is the way it weaponizes. The ordinary June's discovery does not happen through a dramatic chase or a moment of high tension. It happens in the quiet, in the mundane, in the places where we are least guarded. That is what makes the thread feel so real and so personal. The show is making a pointed statement about the cost of hope, about how vulnerability, when exploited by someone with an agenda, can become the very thing that puts you in danger. June's instincts were right from early on, and yet her entirely human desire to believe in something good delayed her just long enough for the trap to close. The anonymous message adds another layer, entirely suggesting a broader conspiracy that extends well beyond the two of them, which means the stakes are not just personal, they are life or death. I have been watching Beyond the Gates long enough to know that this show does not introduce a storyline this layered unless it intends to go somewhere truly explosive with it. June discovering the truth on her own, quietly and methodically, without collapsing or running. That is a character being written with real intelligence and real respect. She is not a victim waiting to be rescued. She is someone who is going to walk straight into this fire armed with knowledge. And that makes her both admirable and terrifying to watch. I'm fully invested, and I think this arc has the potential to be the defining storyline of the season. And in Beyond the Gates, that kind of secret doesn't stay hidden forever. It explodes. And when it does, no one is safe. So, where does June go from here? Does she confront him directly and risk everything? Or does she keep playing the role while gathering more information? And who sent that anonymous message? A lie or threat? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to know what you think is really going on. If you are not already subscribed, hit that button now because the storyline is only just getting started.